That's a cartoon! Millions of people watch it! How would you feel, Cal, if there was a cartoon on television that made fun of Jews all the time, huh?
Whoa, I had no clue half of this crap happened, but whoa. These controversies make Family Guy look like a Disney movie in comparison. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about South Park, or more specifically, their controversies. As we all know, at its core, South Park is a cartoon made to offend, but they often skirt their way around it by making fun of everybody, or by making fun of both sides, even in the episode itself. Whereas with most shows, they'll usually just pick one side and stick with it. However, for one reason or another, some people don't like South Park. I mean, my mom says they always repeat the same joke, and it has created a great deal of controversy. I mean, at least enough to make this list. In March, I will be hosting a panel at PoochieCon in Teaneck about the biggest South Park controversies, and to help prepare myself, I wrote this script. I actually meant to write it like months ago, probably last summer, but I'm sure you can understand why it took so long. Research, stuff going on in my life, etc. And just to put it out there, depending on when this video comes out, I will not be discussing the controversy involving the Muslim prophet Muhammad. Not because I'm scared, but because that had enough material for 2 videos. It got to be too long for here, so we're getting 2. And on top of that, unlike usual, I won't be doing any honorable mentions. Don't worry, that still leaves us with plenty to talk about. So, let's discuss. Starting with
the father of Eric Cartman is... Say, did anybody see that Terrence and Phillip special last month? Wasn't that just the funniest thing? Alright.
Now this isn't the controversy in the sense of many of the others, hence it being so low, but it's still an interesting one nonetheless, so I thought fit to include it. In 1998, Cartman's Mom Part 1 aired and posed the mystery of who was Cartman's real father. It ended season 1 with a massive cliffhanger, and it was promised that the truth would come out in 4 weeks, which, wow, I can't believe it was quick back then. Just saying, nowadays they only do 6 episodes a year. 4 weeks passed, and it seems like we would finally put this mystery to rest. Only, on April 1st, people tuned in, and they got something else instead.
Now finally, the shocking truth about Cartman's lineage will not be seen tonight, so that we can bring you the following special presentation.
I don't want to be the one to say it, but guys, it literally aired on April 1st. Not around April 1st, but on April Fool's Day itself. Did nothing seem off to you? Instead, we got a standalone Terrence and Phillip episode, where Terrence and Phillip try to stop Saddam Hussein from taking over Canada. This was prior to him dating Satan, which of course led to a bit of early installment weirdness, especially in terms of his voice.
Saddam Hussein, the Iraqi dictator?
Hey, relax, guy. I'm just your average Joe. Take a rest.
All of this was on top of them making fun of the controversy that they knew would likely result from this episode. Like when Terrence and Phillip try to watch TV, and they get a rerun of South Park.
Stupid.
God damn, that TV show's a lame!
The father of Eric Cartman is indeed someone in this room.
Look at those silly American heads!
They look like groundhogs. My father?
Now, as can be expected, many fans were not all that happy that Matt and Trey duped them. And remember, this was back when South Park was at its peak, and was that one show they banned in school, so there were a lot of angry fans. In fact, Comedy Central got over 2,000 angry emails in 1 week, just on this merit alone. One specifically angry call was even posted alongside the promo for Part 2 of Cartman's Mom, just to show how angry fans got. I'll read it, but be warned, it's quite graphic. Who the f*** do you think you guys are with Comedy Central and that f***ing South Park? I mean, people have been waiting 4 weeks to see who the Cartman's father is, and all you guys can show us is Terrence and Phillip. You guys suck. You. And better yet, fans held grudges against the creators for years. But I will say, as somebody who wasn't even born back then and knew nothing about the controversy, when I went in blind to watch Terrence and Phillip, I kind of liked it. It wasn't the best episode, and it's not my favorite, but it's not the worst. It's very South Park-esque. It kind of reminds me of, say, the Numericons episode from Rick and Morty, where on its own it's a good episode, but it aired in the wrong series, so nobody liked it. Plus, it was probably the first episode to portray Canadians as some kind of backward species, and arguably it was a funny way to troll people. Fun fact, according to the Sydney Morning Herald, there were 29 fart jokes in the entire episode. If that doesn't describe South Park, I don't know what does.
I said, we find Taz not guilty! Oh, Philip, you saved me from the gas chamber!
As a result of the controversy, much like with Pip, Comedy Central rarely re-aired the episode for years, to the point where, much like Pip, you could be mistaken for believing it never existed. However, I'm somebody who watches cartoons to fall asleep, especially on cable, and recently, they have started to re-air the episode a lot more frequently. What helps is that now they have started to air the series in episode order, rather than at random, and they typically start with Not Without My Anus, before going into the Cartman's Mom 2-parter, which sucks for me because I like being surprised, and I feel like it's weird they're avoiding season 1 episodes, but what are you gonna do? Also, fun fact, this was Matt and Trey's favorite episode of the pre-movie seasons. I'm not even joking.
Hey, Mexico! We said no spending the space cash yet! What the hell are you doing? Will some country that speaks Spanish yell at Mexico, please? They're gonna ruin everything!
As I have made apparent in recent time, one of my all-time favorite episodes is Pinewood Derby, where Randy uncovers faster than light travel, simply to cheat at a Pinewood Derby race, and this leads to first contact with alien life through intergalactic villain Baby Fark McGeezack. Only it turns out this was a test to see if humankind was worthy of joining space, one that they sadly failed. Now, while a great episode, it experienced a lot of pushback, especially in Mexico. The main conflict comes when humankind discovers that Baby Fark McGeezack had stolen millions of dollars of space cash, hence him being on the run, and the other nations take over the space cash to use however they want. They try not to alert the space cops, but Mexico lets it out of the bag as they use the money to build, among other things, 32 new hospitals and 7 water parks.
Oh. Yeah, Mexico. Yeah, all of us other countries chipped in and gave Mexico some aid. Yeah, they really needed new water parks.
This causes Randy and the world leaders to make fun of Mexico's president, who at the time was Felipe Calderón. Originally, a Mexican version of Pinewood Derby was supposed to air on February 8, 2010, on MTV Latin America, which, for reference, is about a year after its American air date. The episode received massive hype, but at the last minute, the episode was pulled and replaced with a rerun of The Ring. A good episode, but what about Pinewood Derby? Well, it's complicated. It was believed that the episode portrayed Mexico's president in a bad light, which the Mexican Ministry of the Interior desperately wanted to avoid. On top of that, MTV apparently did not get permission from the Interior to air the episode, which presented a Mexican flag, and they knew that if they altered it or censored it in any way, fans would be outraged, even if they couldn't just redub it. I'm sure that's possible. Just say that Finland did all that stuff. Give us another reason for Randy to hate them, and Mexico could agree with Randy. Fan support continued, and on April 4, 2010, the episode was finally aired uncensored, as MTV got the right permission. Now, personally, I still feel like you can rationalize this as a major misinterpretation. After all, the episode made a big point that while the space cops disliked that the humans failed the test by not returning the space cache, the sheer mere fact was that they wasted it on stupid stuff, and that really irritated them. The Mexican people were the only ones who seemed to have spent it on something useful. I mean, all those hospitals? True, they don't have clean hands because they spent the space cash, but you can argue that they were the only country to be altruistic about it. Funny enough, this is like the one controversy that Matt and Trey had nothing to do with. Matt himself even confessed he had no idea what was going on. That's so far away from us, we'd read about it on the news too, along with everybody else. Probably not the first time it's happened to him.
Let me guess, you work for a company trying to get Chinese people as customers. Wow, where'd you get that idea? It's okay. I'm sure there's plenty of Chinese people for all of us.
A recent controversy, but a controversy nonetheless. Actually, I think this might be the most recent. Randy learns that China has an untapped market, and one of the largest economies and populations in the world. So he resolves to travel there and market his weed to them. Only he learns he's not the first person to think to do that. Disney, Google, clothing companies, the NBA, they all try to market to China.
Oh, for Christ's sake! You have a good idea and everyone wants to copy you. Fine, I can handle some healthy competition.
However, weed is still illegal in China, so Randy ends up in a Chinese prison, where he essentially becomes a slave and gets tortured non-stop.
I am a proud member of the Communist Party. The party is more important than the individual.
Eventually, he is able to market to them, on the condition that he kills Winnie the Pooh, who is a political prisoner.
Are you prisoners here?
Some people said Pooh looked like the Chinese president, so we're illegal in China now.
And as he learns next episode, well...
You know why the Chinese buy our weed? It's to plant on their student protesters, so they can put them in jail!
Yeah, we make money either way.
Ew. While this is going on, Stan and his friends try to write their own Bohemian Rhapsody-esque biopic, but they find that because China is the biggest international film market and the censors are super strict, they have to market the movie to them, and everything they say or do is put under a microscope.
All right, well, you know what they say. You gotta lower your ideals of freedom if you want to suck on the warm teat of China.
For example, you can't talk about the Dalai Lama, or organ harvesting, or worse yet, Winnie the Pooh. As the episode makes the point, a group of Chinese students made a meme saying that the leader of China looked like Winnie the Pooh. So, Winnie the Pooh is now banned in China. The point of the episode is that if you market to China, you're a giant hypocrite, especially if you advocate for freedom and individuality, which Disney often does. You know, I'm surprised they did not bring up Mulan, but I guess this was maybe before the movie. Still, you'd think they would make at least one episode or one joke, like they care about freedom so much that they film their female empowerment movie in front of a concentration camp. Unsurprisingly, the episode was banned in China. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. The episode itself wasn't just banned in China. The entire show was banned in China, less than a week after it premiered. In fact, this episode aired when Hulu's license to stream the show was expiring, and Apple TV Plus was uneasy about trying to gain those rights, simply because they market so heavily to China and have a good number of their factories there. In response to this upset, Matt and Trey released a statement on Twitter, saying, like the NBA, we welcome Chinese censors into our homes and into our hearts. We too love money more than freedom and democracy. She doesn't look just like Winnie the Pooh at all. Tune into our 300th episode this Wednesday at 10. Long live the great Communist Party of China. May this autumn's sorghum harvest be bountiful. We good now, China? And speaking of time periods, well, this was around the same time that the Hong Kong protests were going on. So as a form of protest, this episode was streamed uncensored on a public street in the Sham Shui Po district, a very busy part of Hong Kong. If that's not protest, I don't know what is.
Hey, hi, listen, dude. You know, the whole crocodile hunter thing, it's just a little soon, you know? I mean, he just died a few weeks ago and...
One of the best parts of South Park is how it often airs in real time, usually. For example, Best Friends Forever, which tackled the Terry Schiavo case, aired the same night she died, which led to them deciding to make the episode standalone, rather than the two-parter they planned. Or most notably, the super controversial OGs was redone in less than 24 hours. However, sometimes they can be a little too recent. On September 4th, 2006, famed crocodile hunter, not alligator hunter, Steve Irwin, died while filming the documentary Ocean's Deadliest in the Great Barrier Reef. His cause of death was a short-tailed stingray piercing his chest with its tail and hitting his heart, causing him to bleed out. Ouch. His death was mourned worldwide. However, in many ways, it was also a current event, and South Park is all about current events. In Hell on Earth 2006, Satan decides to throw a massive Halloween party on Earth and invites a bunch of celebrities and Hell residents alike to the party. While the episode featured, among other things, Satan turning into a rich, spoiled teenage girl and Biggie Smalls, it was also overshadowed by a massive controversy that lasted only a few seconds. Party or not, there are rules to attend. You had to wear a Halloween costume so long as it wasn't the Crow, and you had to get in wearing a special blue wristband. At the party, Satan learns that a partygoer is wearing a crocodile hunter costume, which being so soon after Steve's passing is upsetting the other guests. So Satan tries to politely get this dude to leave, only to learn,
But it's me, Satan. Steve Irwin. I am the crocodile hunter.
Oh, but then, dude, no costume. Sorry, you gotta go.
While a quick moment, it led to massive controversy. Unsurprisingly, Steve's family, especially his now widow Terry, were not thrilled with the betrayal, especially so close after her husband's demise. A friend close to Terry is quoted as saying, "Terry is devastated Steve is being mocked in such a cruel way. Her worry is that Bindi and Bob will see it and break down. Steve had as big a sense of humor as anyone, but this goes too far too soon. For the record, Bindi and Bob are their children." Other journalists and associates chimed in, with Mark Amy, a friend of Steve and fellow naturalist, commenting that the episode was, quote, distasteful. As far as censorship went, the episode was deemed acceptable to air in Australia by the Australian Communications and Media Authority after 12 months had passed. Comedy Central supported Matt and Trey, releasing several statements saying, "The South Park guys do inappropriate things all the time. Their goal is to make people laugh, not to offend. South Park has offended people in the past and probably will again. Regular watchers would not be shocked, and Matt and Trey themselves were taken aback with the backlash, as it was canon that most people in South Park wind up in hell, regardless of whether or not they were good or bad people." Now, I understand this from both sides. First off, I don't think the South Park crew were trying to mock Steve's demise. They were trying to show that in the episode, Satan was going too far. He could have simply told Steve that he could stay if he wore a costume, or made it clearer that he wasn't trying to make fun of the crocodile hunter. Heck, maybe Satan had a spare costume he could lend out, or know somebody who could. But I also understand it from the perspective of a grieving widow. Imagine your husband just died, and you have 2 young children who you have to shield from that, and your tragedy is broadcast all over TV like it's no big deal. Total strangers making fun of him, it would probably hurt. I think maybe at worst they could have just not had the stingray, but then how are you gonna say it's Steve Irwin? I don't know. Maybe they could have reworded it? I don't know.
Alec Baldwin?
Gary?
He's my hero. The single greatest actor of all time.
Strangely, unlike a lot of other controversies, this one has less to do with South Park and more to do with the creators. Now, Matt and Trey make their bread and butter by mocking celebrities, but they've made the point in the past that 9 times out of 10, they don't mean anything bad by it. Like with Kathy Lee Gifford, they just picked a random celebrity. The only exceptions are people like Barbara Streisand and Michael Moore. In 2002, Michael Moore released a documentary called Bowling for Columbine, which talked about gun control and the role it played in the titular disaster, which kinda like Super Size Me is a super duper incorrect documentary peddling a lot of misinformation, but I don't really have time to get into all of it. Just saying, you know that I'm pretty liberal and I am not a fan of this movie. For example, no, I hate people who keep peddling this myth, but the shooters were not outcasts who were lashing out at society. It's dangerous that everybody keeps thinking this. One of the people Michael Moore interviewed was Matt, as Matt grew up in Littleton, which was near the high school. And fun fact, Matt Stone is a firearm owner.
Whatever I am now, I'm that forever. And of course, it's completely opposite. All the dorks in high school go on to do great things, and all the really cool guys are all like living back in Littleton as insurance agents.
Immediately after said interview, a short animated segment aired, which essentially said that the NRA's creation was linked with the KKK.
And in 1871, the same year the Klan became an illegal terrorist organization, another group was founded, the National Rifle Association.
Which is incorrect. The NRA was created to improve marksmanship. I was surprised to learn that, actually. Just saying, if you're gonna make a point, at least do your frickin' research, or don't mix comedy and a message in your documentary. Both Matt and Trey hated the movie because they did not agree with the film's message, or with that segment, which they believed was placed immediately after to give the impression that they did. So they started a beef with Michael Moore, literally. During their feature-length movie, Team America World Police, they made fun of a lot of celebrities who were popular at the time, but the point was made that most of these they did not hate, except for Michael Moore.
Protesting is not enough. We must take radical action against the fascists in our own country. Bring it down! Bring it all down!
Michael Moore was basically Rob Reiner, but worse. An annoying, fat, greasy man who was always stuffing his face. And at one point, even takes out one of the good guys, who was voiced by Darren Norris, with a bomb strapped to him.
Hey, Team America! I got something for you! What the hell? Prepare to die!
That scene, in fact, was done by stuffing the puppet with ham. As for South Park, they had him featured in the episode 1%, where Butters and Jimmy protest against the presidential fitness test and their grading system. But because they don't properly communicate their message, it's assumed they're occupying Red Robin, and the media gets involved, including Michael Moore.
Filmmaker Michael Moore has joined the protesters.
I look out of the faces of you protesters and I see the future of America. We are the 99%! No!
Ugh.
The South Park video game, coming to stores soon.
Yeah, and if you believe that, I got a big floppy wiener to dangle in your face.
The Stick of Truth was one of the first major South Park video games, and it took a while to come out. It even got its own free parter, the infamous Black Friday trilogy, in order to promote it. But despite this, the video game also faced a lot of pushback over its content. In fact, there were 2 scenes in particular that made standards and practices a wee bit afraid. The anal probing scene as part of the alien abduction quest, and the Unplanned Parenthood quest, which involved the characters giving abortions. Both of these were meant to reference past episodes. Alien Abduction was meant to harken back to the pilot, aptly titled Cartman Gets an Anal Probe, where Cartman is abducted by the visitors and gets the titular probe. Unplanned Parenthood was a callback to the Woodland Critter Christmas special, where the day is saved thanks to Stan and mountain lion cubs learning how to give abortions. In Australia, the game could not gain a rating from the Australian Classification Board, and they unsuccessfully tried twice. Eventually, they submitted a censored cut, which gave them a rating of R18+. This new cut had scenes be censored in a very hilarious way. Instead, you would get a picture of a crying koala and the word censored over him, while the bottom text would describe what's going on in the scene, such as, "Sorry Australia, you're not able to play this section of the game. In this part, Mr. Mackey, Craig, Mr. Slave, and you have been abducted. They are bound to high tables, still appear to be asleep, and are being thoroughly probed," which is kinda cute, not gonna lie. While bad in Australia, things were just as awful in Europe for a variety of reasons. Ubisoft, the game's developer, censored the game's release in the EU with the help of their European counterpart, Ubisoft EUA, or Ubisoft Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Why? You guessed it, the alien, abduction, and unplanned parenthood sections. This time, any censored scene was replaced with an image of the Thinker, and the background was the EU flag. And much like Australia, they would tell you what happened. The one censor job I can kind of understand was in Austria and Germany. The game featured Nazi imagery, especially Chef coming back to life as a Nazi zombie. In Germany, anything related to the Nazis is banned outright, including symbols and gestures, the only exception being if it's for educational purposes, which unfortunately South Park isn't. In this case, they were pretty forgiving, and simply censored anything Nazi related with a black box, or bleeped it out, which is still censorship, don't get me wrong, but as we saw, it could have been a lot worse. And just to show you how widespread the censorship is, the North American release is the only version of the game to be entirely uncensored. The game's sequel, The Fractured But Whole, on the other hand, had an easier time of it. Normally, I don't talk about the South Park video games. It's not because it's a conscious choice, I just don't know how to gather footage the same way I do with cartoons. And on top of that, it's often harder to make a video game video on YouTube, as companies often come down hard on you for it. I'm somebody who likes video games, but I'm not a huge fan, so I consider this an absolute win.
I'm nothing. I'm a failure in the eyes of the prophet. Ah!
Hey! Dude, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
Go away!
I'm sure we're all familiar with the infamous Trapped in the Closet episode, which brought to the forefront that Scientology was not all it was cracked up to be. Stan himself is believed to be the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, and the church wants him to continue Mr. Hubbard's mission. Only when Stan wants to make it so the church cannot charge people for help, he learns that Scientology is a global scam.
Because if those people all think you're the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard, then they'll all buy your new writings, and you and I together will make $3 million!
And when he tries to tell people the secret, he learns that he'll be sued, and nobody believes him.
You are so sued, kid!
Well, go on then, sue me!
We're going to!
Okay, good! Do it! I'm not scared of you! Sue me!
Fun fact, Jenna Hill, the niece of David Miscavige, the head of Scientology, watched the episode and said that was the first time she ever heard the story of Xenu, even if she was raised in the church. However, this isn't the controversy I'm here to talk about. There's two. First, we should talk about Tom Cruise and what eventually was called Closetgate. Because I'm recording this in my sister's closet, and I can feel Tom Cruise's breath on my neck like a creepy snake. The episode features Tom Cruise because Tom is one of the leading voices for Scientology. He tries to pay homage to the new prophet, but when he learns that Stan merely considers his work alright, he locks himself in Stan's closet and refuses to come out until the episode's end. And everybody spends the episode trying to get him to come out.
Dad! Tom Cruise won't come out of the closet! Tom Cruise locked himself in my closet and he won't come out.
Mr. Cruz?
Mr. Cruise, come out of the closet.
Of course, it's a metaphor for the joke about Tom Cruise secretly being gay, but this was problematic in its own right. Apparently, Tom Cruise is known for having a thin skin, and will sue anybody who infers that he's gay. A few months after the episode aired, on March 15, 2006, Comedy Central planned a rerun of the episode, but at the last minute, it was swapped with a rerun of Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls. Their reasoning was that Isaac Hayes was departing from South Park and they wanted to give him a meaningful farewell. We'll get to that. But people had other ideas. This was also around the same time that Mission Impossible 3 was releasing in theaters, and it starred Tom Cruise. Rumors spread that Tom Cruise had threatened Paramount Pictures, Comedy Central's sister company, that if the episode aired, he would refuse to promote the movie. This led to South Park fans boycotting Mission Impossible, and Matt and Trey releasing a statement through their lawyer, which read, and this is no joke, for immediate release. Scientology, you may have won this battle, but the million-year war for Earth has just begun. Temporarily non-cynicizing our episode will not stop us from keeping Thetans forever trapped in your pitiful man bodies. Curses and dread. You have obstructed us for now, but your feeble bid to save humanity will fail. Hail Xenu. Signed by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, servants of the Dark Lord Xenu. 1 month later, Tom Cruise sat down for an interview and tried to clear up the misunderstanding. First of all, could you ever imagine sitting down with anyone? I would never sit down with someone and question them on their beliefs. Here's the thing, I'm really not even going to dignify this. I honestly didn't even know about it. I'm working, making my movie. I got my family. I'm busy. I don't spend my days going, what are these people saying about me? Then on June 19th, Comedy Central allowed the episode to air once again. Granted, the real controversy doesn't come from Tom Cruise, who I feel was either in the dark, probably didn't care, or was just trying to be diplomatic. It was the church. They got upset on his behalf. In Scientology, there's a practice called fair game, where if somebody criticizes the church, you are allowed to get back at them in ways that are often illegal and or immoral, and sometimes involve hiring private investigators to dig up any dirt that they can. The church sent spies to stalk Matt and Trey and their friends and families, and even toyed with the idea of hiring an intern to send to South Park Studios to act as their mole. They rooted through their trash, their plane records, bank accounts, phone lines, their caterers, parking spaces, cars. But alas, the church couldn't find anything worthy of blackmail, and they relented. Whoa, the church goes through garbage? Are they the guys who steal my recyclables every night? I better rip the label off my pill bottles.
Stay with us and your life will be grand and eternal!
Chef, we love you.
I'm sorry, children.
Now I guess I could have put this section in with Closet Gate, but it still hurts and it's pretty big in its own right. Chef was a beloved character of the earlier seasons of South Park, and he was voiced by soul legend Isaac Hayes. The thing you might not know is, Isaac was a Scientologist, and he often endorsed the church. Remember the episode where the boys go on Ritalin, and Chef leads a crusade against medicating them? Apparently, Isaac was a huge fan of that episode because Scientology doesn't believe in psychology. They consider it poison. After Trapped in the Closet aired, Isaac resigned from the show, releasing a statement saying, "There is a place in this world for satire, but there is a time when satire ends and intolerance and bigotry towards religious beliefs of others begins. Religious beliefs are sacred to people, and at all times should be respected and honored. As a civil rights activist of the past 40 years, I cannot support a show that disrespects those beliefs and practices." Matt Matt and Trey were massively taken aback by this statement, with Matt himself commenting, "In 10 years and over 150 episodes of South Park, Isaac never had a problem with the show making fun of Christians, Muslims, Mormons, or Jews. He got a sudden case of religious sensitivity when it was his religion featured on the show. Of course, we will release Isaac from his contract, and we wish him well." Sometime later, South Park's 10th season aired, and it opened with the episode The Return of Chef, which described Matt and Trey's thoughts towards the situation. Chef feels like his life is lacking, and he joins the Super Adventure Club, which is basically Scientology. Only, it turns out the Super Adventure Club is a group of perverts who make the NAMBLA members look like normal people.
It appears you leave us no choice. I'm afraid we're going to have to ask you to leave.
And Chef was brainwashed to follow their doctrine. While Isaac wasn't featured, they did have him appear by using vocal clips from past episodes, which works out well because sometimes it's like you can tell when he's brainwashed or like when he's crying out for help.
That's right. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Well, how about I meet you boys after work and we can make love?
Chef ends up dying gruesomely, but at his funeral, Kyle, i.e. Matt and Trey, say that while they aren't happy about what Isaac did, he is still their friend, and if he ever wants to come back, there's always a place for him.
I'm gonna remember Chef as the guy who gave us advice to live by. We shouldn't be mad at Chef for leaving us. We should be mad at that fruity little club for scrambling his brains.
The thing is, despite everybody making it seem like Isaac quit immediately after the Scientology episode, that couldn't be further from the truth. Trapped in the Closet aired on November 16th, 2005, and South Park Season 9 ended on December 7th. Isaac himself resigned on March 13th, 2006. Many months later. In fact, Isaac himself seemed to have had no problem with the episode, just with their treatment of Scientology. After the episode aired, during the Opie and Anthony radio show a month later, he is quoted as saying, "One thing about Matt and Trey, they lampoon everybody, and if you take that serious, I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge for $2. That's what they do." He even said that while he wasn't the biggest fan of the episode and he wanted to show Matt and Trey what Scientology really was all about, he knew it was just something they did, and he accepted it. For years, fans were upset with Isaac's decision and raked him over the coals. Well, the truth is actually super sad. As it turns out, Isaac wasn't a cowardly hypocrite. He was a victim. According to Isaac's son, Isaac III, Isaac had a stroke during the time between season 9 and 10, and wasn't in any condition to make decisions for himself. So when he was out cold, his team wrote up the statement and quit for him, because they were all Scientologists. And when he came to and was barely able to communicate, they used him as a puppet. Said son gave an interview to The Hollywood Reporter in 2016, saying, quote, "Isaac Hayes did not quit South Park. Someone quit South Park for him. What happened was that in January 2006, my dad had a stroke and lost the ability to speak. He really didn't have that much comprehension, and he had to relearn to play the piano and a lot of different things. He was in no position to resign under his own knowledge. At the time, everybody around my father was involved in Scientology, his assistants, the core group of people, so someone quit South Park on Isaac Hayes' behalf. We don't know who." Matt Stone added on, saying, "We sort of figured out the whole picture a bit later, but that's totally what happened." Which, oh my god, that's awful. Think about it. You're not all there. You're fighting for your life, and these people ruin it, and when you wake up, they just force you to accept this? Heck, after they forced him to quit because he was no longer on South Park, he actually lost a lot of money, and he had to go back to touring, which was immediately after having a stroke. Sadly though, I feel like sooner or later, Isaac was going to leave South Park. Chef was appearing less and less, and got less episodes to himself. You'd be lucky if Chef even got a cameo. I feel like if he just left South Park, it should have been of his own volition. That's what makes this situation so tragic.
I'm afraid our situation is dire. The economy is stale and dying. Very soon, Mother Russia will no longer be a country.
Oh no, Russia. I can't talk about this section because then I'll be a traitor to my country and then I'll have to hide out in Russia. Oh, Kitty, you don't have to move to Russia. I do too! Now, a lot of nations have banned South Park for one reason or another. For example, Sri Lanka banned the entire series after the episode 200 showed Buddha snorting cocaine.
You need to understand that people get very offended when Muhammad is mocked because he's a religious figure. Buddha, don't do coke in front of kids!
And it was banned in India for nearly 9 years. However, most countries simply forbid it to air on their networks, or dub it, or they ban specific episodes or moments. However, no country has taken legal action against the show, except Russia. In Russia, South Park airs on the Russian network 2x2. I guess 2x2? Which is apparently the Russian version of Adult Swim. Much like Adult Swim or Fox, 2x2 often gets criticized by moral guardians, who can't handle simply changing the channel, or maybe they're too lazy to put a channel blocker on. 2x2 often gets licenses to air these shows from the Russian government. In 2008, 2x2 broadcast an episode of Mr. Hanky's Christmas Classics, and this led to activists getting concerned, even if said episode isn't really an episode, just a lot of Christmas songs with Mr. Hanky attached as sort of a framing device. And really, you pick this one episode, there's probably dozens of more to choose from. Russian prosecutors, along with members of the Russian Union of Christians of Evangelical Faith and other moral guardians, banded together and attempted legal action to get the show removed from Russian airways, saying it had, quote, bore signs of extremist activity. They filed a lawsuit and everything. Their spokesperson, not spokesman, because the term excludes women from an occupation, has gone on record to say, South Park is just one of many cartoons that needs to be banned from open broadcast, as it insults the feelings of religious believers and incites religious and national hatred. Our complaint is against a lot of cartoons, but this one was from South Park Season 3, Episode 15. It's one thing if they are on cable TV, and viewers pay money and make a conscious choice, but young children should not be able to turn on the TV after school and watch this. They need to be defended. Their legal justification concerned Russian law, which broadened the definition of extremism to include the abasement of national dignity or inciting religious and national hatred, which they believed concerned South Park, as it frequently makes fun of various religions and minorities. Ultimately, this attempt failed, and better yet, 2x2's broadcasting license was extended until 2013. However, that doesn't mean Russia hasn't stopped censoring South Park. The episode, Free Wilsiak, had a scene cut of the boys trying to call up Vladimir Putin for aid in getting the titular whale to the moon. Long story. But Putin refuses as he believes it's a prank call.
But you need to understand, we have a whale here that needs to get back to his family on the moon.
God damn it, it is prank call again! Kiss my George Bush, this is not funny!
The belief was that the episode was portraying Putin as an idiot, although this bit kinda confused me, so take my words with a grain of salt. Some say Pinewood Derby was censored for that reason, while others say it was Free Wilsiak, but I wouldn't be surprised if both episodes got censored, as they both feature the Russian president in situations you can easily misconstrue as mocking. Granted, I don't know if because of sanctions, if the show still airs in Russia, but I highly doubted, as the channel has lost the rights to air most Western cartoons. What did they replace them with? Korean and Chinese dramas. My sister watches Korean dramas all the time. Maybe they're not as good as Family Guy or Venture Brothers, but they're fun to watch.
She's beautiful.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. Season 9 ended with the episode Bloody Mary. Randy gets a DUI, and as part of his punishment, he has to attend AA meetings, where they tell him he's an alcoholic, and it's a disease, which causes him to do this.
Stan! Stan! Stan!
Aw, God damn it!
Get Daddy another beer, will you?
As somebody who has grown up around addicts, gambling, drugs, alcohol, yes, I think addiction is a disease. Maybe it's not on the level of cancer, but it's a problem that requires help and intervention.
Very, very sick. And just like with most diseases, you can't cure it yourself. And it's deadly.
Oh my God.
I just feel like there obviously is a difference between having a problem when it comes to self-control and being a full-blown addict. To cure his alcoholism, Randy learns that a statue of the Virgin Mary is crying blood out of its behind. Eventually, the statue is examined by the Pope, who learns that the statue wasn't really crying out its behind, but rather its lady part. And it's not a miracle because most women menstruate. Does the Pope see a lot of menstruating statues in his time? Do they also get intense cravings for carbs? Do they have giant blood clots that make you question if you should see a doctor? I have questions. As you can imagine, an episode making fun of Christianity, well, it made a lot of Christians angry. It did not help that the episode aired on December 7, 2006, the day before the Feast of Immaculate Conception, a holy day of obligation which celebrates when the Virgin Mary was impregnated with Jesus, which Matt and Trey have made the point they're agnostics, so I don't think they knew that going in. I don't think they were trying to make fun of Christianity for that. Ironically, this episode's plotline was pitched by longtime producer Ann Garofino, a practicing Catholic who even voiced Sister Anne all the way back in season 4, solely because she was the only Catholic they knew. Anne said they should do an episode on bleeding statues, but she went beyond that. In fact, the whole scene of the statue bleeding on the Pope, yeah, that was her idea.
It's a miracle!
Their major critics included the president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, and let's not forget the voice of the Legion, the Catholic League, led by Bill Donahue. He demanded an apology to Roman Catholics and called on the Viacom board member and fellow Catholic Joseph A. Califano to release a statement, saying Comedy Central is a subsidiary of MTV, which is owned by Viacom. On the board of directors of Viacom is a practicing Catholic and a disgraced public servant, Joseph A. Califano. He served under Presidents Johnson and Carter. We are writing to him today requesting that he intervene in this matter. We want A, an apology to Roman Catholics, and B, a pledge that this episode be permanently retired and not made available on DVD. In the event Viacom does not cooperate, we are asking Mr. Califano to release his own statement of condemnation. We are asking our members to contact him as well. Remember, they chose to insult our Blessed Mother on the eve of the Immaculate Conception and the holy day itself. As it turns out, Joseph eventually stepped up to the plate and stood with the Catholic League, saying, "Today I view the South Park segment about the Blessed Mother. I found it an appalling and disgusting portrayal of the Virgin Mary. It is particularly troubling to me as a Roman Catholic that the segment has run on the eve and day of the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, a holy day for Roman Catholics. I have talked to Tom Freston, the president and chief executive of the new Viacom, and asked him to review the show and determine whether any action should be taken. That decision is his." Bill Donahue accepted the statement, saying, "Joe Califano did not let us down. His unequivocal condemnation of this incredible assault on Catholic sensibilities is very much appreciated. We await Mr. Freston's response." Well, what happened? On December 28, 2005, Season 9 was re-aired, but they did not include the episode. Fans were curious and emailed Comedy Central, who said the episode wasn't pulled. If I had to guess, they were just afraid of the controversy, so they took a gamble and waited until things died down. Eventually, the episode re-aired on August 2nd, 2006, and has returned to circulation. I myself saw it on TV the other night. While complicated in the US, things were just as bad overseas, especially in New Zealand. Several religious organizations, among them the New Zealand Catholic Bishops' Conference and the Council of Christians and Muslims, banded together to lobby CanWest to stop the airing of the episode on their network C4. The network refused, so this led to organizations demanding a boycott of C4 and its sister channels. The irony is, by bringing attention to the episode, they just made people more excited to watch it. The network decided that as the media had their eyes on the channel, it was better to air the episode earlier than anticipated. Heck, New Zealand's Prime Minister even commented on the controversy, saying that while she wasn't a fan of the episode, the network had the right to air it. Eventually, the episode aired on February 22nd, 2006, and 210,000 viewers tuned in. While it might seem like nothing, this was 6 times C4's normal audience. In the end, the network did receive 102 complaints, but they didn't relent, and neither did the Broadcasting Standards Authority of New Zealand, who despite outcry, refused to pull the episode. Guess it goes to show that you don't have to let a controversy go to waste.